The number one defense in the NBA gets set ablaze by the Suns tonight as the Timberwolves give up 133 points, losing by 18 on the road, playing their first back-to-back of the season. The Phoenix Suns really needed a win. They were 4-6 coming into this one, now 5-6. They end the Timberwolves' 7-game winning streak and really do it in pretty convincing fashion. It didn't feel like an 18-point loss. They were up by significantly more and through basically the entire game as the defense could not stop a soul. And it was just that the Suns had everything going tonight. It started with poor pick-and-roll defense out of the Timberwolves. The spacing for the Suns was spectacular. And then you have Rudy Gobert in a massive drop while the ball handler, or the defender of the primary ball handler, just couldn't really get back in front of those screens. So there's so much space for these elite scorers, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and they didn't even need Bradley Beal tonight as they still haven't played their three superstars at the same time. But when you have the best scorers in the NBA, even with a former scoring champ not playing in this one, they're going to punish you so severely. And that happened early, and then they just kind of got cooking. They found their okay dance. And from that point, it was just disastrous because Kevin Durant had all these moments where it's just Botero situations, hitting contested shot. So even when we play good D, which we did mostly in isolation situations, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, they're the best isolation scorers in the game. So it didn't matter. They were still putting in those buckets. And then what really kills you is schematically, you feel like you get the person taking the shot you want, and then Josh Okogie, Drew Eubanks, and Nurkic go 6 of 6 on threes. Okogie and the Timberwolves had the same amount of three-point makes in the first half, and that was just killer. So Okogie, 3 of those makes, by the way. He was the big contributor, former Timberwolf. Love that man, but he certainly has offensive weaknesses in his game. Came into this one shooting 17% from 3 on the year, and just everyone was knocked down. The Suns would shoot 60% from the floor, 58% from 3. I'll put on screen if that's right. But I'm not enraged by that game. It felt like one that was kind of due. The Suns needed to get right. The Wolves were on this long road stretch. We got our first back-to-back. Anthony Edwards has had back-to-back pretty poor games. He was ruled as questionable, I think, going into the Golden State game last night with a cold, and I wonder if that's still lingering on. And he did play in both of these games, so it's just felt like he didn't have the energy, and his shots weren't falling, and so him not showing up in a superstar fashion like we've needed him to start this season, that's going to pull a lot of things back. You still got Jaden McDaniels with so many stupid fouls. He picks up 2 or 3 after people have already shot the ball in this game. Also 2 within 1 minute right before the half. He had 3 at halftime again. Picks up his 4th in less than 2 minutes. And it feels like eventually we're going to need Jaden to find an offensive flow for this team to really get chugging and be a powerhouse, because our offense is unimpressive. Although you can't say that about the Woomba boy. Karl Anthony Towns was on fire to start this game in the first quarter, had 14, and he was super aggressive, really our only source of offense early before things got out of hand, because he wouldn't have any points in the second quarter and didn't play a lot of it, and no one else could really get going. He would also continue to score well in the third quarter, but at that point the game was pretty lost. Also, Mike Conley was nice offensively for us. We just didn't have the punch and couldn't get the stops for it to matter. Also, I was so thrilled early on this season with Naz's consistency, just being a beast off the bench. He hasn't had the same impact in recent games, and hopefully that can come back, and I think that he should be fine. But there are 2 things offensively that got me kind of worried 11 games in here. Shake Milton, I thought he was going to be a pretty solid signing for us. He's producing about half of his averages right now that you would expect out of him. With Shake, you would probably at this point think, all right, about 10 points, 3 assists per game. He's about at half of those, like less than 5 points a game and less than 1.5 assists. So he's not really getting people involved. He hasn't been aggressive. He's just been pretty disappointing early on. Doesn't mean that he can't stabilize, but it's been a bit, and it's starting to be concerning. Also, Rudy Gobert. I've been really thrilled with his defense this year. He's been so much better than the previous season. You can't say that about his offense. He is a 65% career field goal shooter. He's at about 50% right now. Also shooting about 6% worse from the free throw line. And so the efficiency is taking a serious dip with Rudy Gobert, which is getting a little concerning because it seems like we need to squeeze out every bit of potential from our offense as we can right now with how rough it's been looking, and that being the clear thing that is behind on this team. Because giving up this amount of points is an outlier for the Wolves, so just kind of some long-term trends to pay attention to on the offense. And yeah, that was a rough one. They're going to happen. Sometimes you're set up with the noon duel to have a bit of a smack in the math. We got that one tonight. Might not be the worst thing for the Wolves in the long term. A little humbling, you know, that's okay. Next game is on today against the Pelicans.